Welcome to the United States of America podcast. I am your host, Niti, and we are broadcasting live from the Food Church here on North Carolina. If you've missed past episodes, please be sure to take the time to watch the first episode and watch the rest like a documentary. We are a people at peace, and we have declared peace to all nations around the world. This is not a marketing or promotional channel. We are shining a light on knowledge that is being hidden from you, and we are sharing the truth about your birthright and your inheritance. We have moderators who are assisting in the comment section. Please be kind and self-govern. If you have any questions, please put them in all caps and only enter them once per show. I am joined on air with a few of the North Carolina Assembly coordinators because Greg Clarkson is tied up with harvesting time this week, and so he'll be back next week. And in the meantime, I am proud to introduce you to Justice Anna Maria, who is joining us live from Alaska today. Welcome, Anna, Lavelle, Daniel. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Good.
Looks like Anna's working.
I don't think she stops.
I know. She doesn't stop. She's like working away. But James gets to come home today, guys. So that's going to be good. Yay. I'm sure he's going to be happy to come home.
Yes, he'll be happy to be home for sure.
Yeah. There we are. Well, Anna, we got Dan and Lavelle. We got coordination questions for you. You know, we're on North Carolina. We are obviously, still working on the disaster relief. And these guys are working with a lot of the volunteers that we have here on the state, and they've got really great questions. And I thought it would be important for them to come and ask you so everybody can learn what kind of, how do the states handle these situations? We are just trying to gain experience, and we're leaning on you for your wisdom from, operating on a global scale. So who's got something for her first? Is it Lavelle or Dan?
I'll speak up. The biggest question I have is from being such a great platform that you have and getting people involved. We've got a lot of good volunteers, but the biggest problem I see us facing, including everybody else in Western Carolina, is getting more people involved. I guess that's my biggest issue is, do you have any suggestions on what we do to just raise people's vibrations into helping this, wanting to help and love each other instead of just possibly donate goods? Because we're getting a lot of feedback. They have plenty of goods, food. What they're missing is hands on deck. They're missing labor. I yield.
Not enough volunteers, huh? Well, usually in disasters, we recruit from the people that have actually suffered the disaster. Everybody who lost a home or whatever pitches in and helps. But in this case, a lot of people are still landlocked. A lot of people are still dependent on being, receiving airlifted supplies. And so it's not quite your usual disaster. There's so much there that is obstructed, in terms of roads, bridges, all the normal pathways that people have to circulate around and do things are not there. And so it's a little bit of an unusual situation. It's not quite like a wildfire that leaves the roads intact. And so, putting out a call for more hands on deck is certainly something that we can do. I'm afraid that to some extent, people are afraid to leave home. I mean, people who I know personally, who would normally be there already and working, groups, church organizations, lots of people that traditionally will volunteer in a situation like that have stayed away. And the reasons that I've heard are basically, we can't go. We have our own situation here. They've got their own disasters that they're dealing with. And so we've had quite a bit of that.
Hmm.
We've also had people that are afraid to go into the disaster area because the early reporting out of North Carolina has been so devastating.
Yep.
Reports of radioactive waste, reports of you know, vast pollution, nobody being able to get fresh, decent water unless you truck it in. These are concerns for people that would otherwise be there because they feel like they not only have to come and work, but they also have to deliver their own ground support. They can't be sure that they'll have water. They can't be sure that they'll be able to be resupplied on the ground once they get there. So that's another concern I've heard voiced.
Yep.
Would you care to comment and maybe give some feedback about the realities of the situation, at least in your area, and where you would want people to go and what you would want them to do?
Lavelle, are you trying to talk?
Yes, I am. Thank
There.
you.
Yeah.
And thank you, Anna, for all that you do educating us. We are so grateful. So we have a lot of good, like Dan said, a lot of good resources. We have people who have helicopters. They're looking to land, don't necessarily know where to land. And so the challenge is everybody knows about the big areas like Asheville and Boone, but it's the surrounding areas that are neglected. And so we're coming to find that we need ways to get in touch or get connected with those who are and not in the bigger towns. So we're seeing that that is an area of challenge for us in North Carolina.
Okay.
A lot of the homesteaders are used to doing things. They have like these get shit done crews, and they get together and they just like do, a barn raising or a fence thing. So, like, I think that it would be really nice for us to hear from the small business owners that are in Western North Carolina. If they could, because I think a lot of the small business owners would have a clean and clear vision of exactly what is needed in terms of labor. And then we have people who would want to volunteer. Like, for example, if ABC store were to say, we need this to be done, we need people to come in and help us clear this one thing out so we can get this thing done, so we can get back to business. Because what we're hearing, Anna, is small businesses want people to start supporting them. There are supposedly restaurants and things that are trying to open, okay, and they need business. And the farmers market, I know, is asking for business. If you look at the Western North Carolina farmers market, like, they have a big old sign saying, our farmers need your business. And, they're here. We are here. There are no food shortages. They're saying they have fresh food. Things like that. I think that it's important for the volunteers for the people who need the volunteers to help us know, hey, we need this. And then we can send a group up, hey, this week, today, we're going to do this, or let's set up some groups to go A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. These are the opportunities for volunteers. Then I think it would be easier for us to put groups together to go up there. Lavelle?
Yes, and we actually have a representative, one of our very own, there today, who has arrived there this morning, and pretty much is going to be the boots on the ground to reach out to those businesses and reach back out to us today. And so we should be getting some information, some intel from them today on what businesses actually that we can go to, because a lot of times they're not going to give to the individual because some individuals are, they're hoarding for themselves and they're not helping other people. So they're not wanting to give resources to individuals or men and women. And so we do have those boots on the ground. We're excited about today that we'll get intel back on who are the businesses that we're able to invest into, and then they can get to the men and women who need the help.
Yeah,
Are we thinking big enough, Anna? Because like we were saying that if we can help the small business owners get on their feet, we can help the economy there. So we're asking you for guidance in this regard.
well, after something like this, one of the worst problems you have is communication and um, being able to travel into the area and around the area. So finding a distribution point and then advertising it, so finding ways that will still broadcast and will still be heard in Western North Carolina is very important. If you could, establish a ground base such as you're discussing here, and then begin broadcasting through whatever means is still up and still operating. There must be radio stations that still broadcast into the area that survived, and find out what those means are to communicate with people. They may not have phones, they may not be able to reach you, but if they can hear the word and get it to somebody else, then you start this sort of chain reaction where people in need and those who are assisting them realize, oh, there's a node here, and we can go here, and this is what we can find here. You want to make sure that whatever it is, whatever help that you're offering, people know that's where they can go to get it. And sometimes in a situation like this, you're going to have to establish multiple nodes across a substantial area. And so getting that kind of networked out into the relief system is important. Now you can do that by other organizations that are working already in the area. One of the organizations that's taken a large share in trying to assist is Samaritan's Purse. So if you get hold of Samaritan's Purse and you say, okay, well, we've got boots on the ground, we've got people in this location, and this is what we're trying to deliver into this area, then they'll put you a little pin on the grid, and they'll say, oh, well, okay, well, we've got somebody here who's working on this, and there's their contact information. And if you need help for, that they are providing, then there's where you go. And they'll just pass it on down through the entire organizational grid that's beginning to form there. And so there won't be duplicates of efforts, and there won't be any confusion about what you can or can't do at a particular location.
I think that it's so overwhelming, Anna. It reminds me of you sharing the story of when you were like, it was just me and James in the tree outside that knew what was going on. And we were like, how are we supposed to let anybody know what the truth is and how we're supposed to move forward, and how you were able to gain the fortitude and the courage to move forward. I mean, wow. And so for all the folks out there listening in Western North Carolina, we want to be able to help you, and we want to put together these get it done groups. If we had, I think we need a campaign, guys. Like we just need a campaign for getting it done, like a get done crew. And then we can send crews up, because really, I think that is what is the hardest thing for them, is just to look outside and go like, oh my God, like I just need a driveway, or I just need, whatever. But if we were to get a whole team and just say, today we're going to go and do this, and then little by little, we could just knock it all out, and we can send multiple groups. There's people that want to do things. They just don't know what it is that they should do. If they know that they're going to come up there and one day they're going to knock that thing out and then they're going to come home, because there's nowhere for them to be on the mountain.
Right.
There's nowhere for them to really stay. And so they don't need more bodies up there if they're going to plan to stay. But like Dan took a whole tractor trailer load up there and he was there and back. It was exhausting and you could just hear it in him, but he knew it needed to be done. And so he did it. It wasn't like he had a whole team of guys with him. And then the person who received it, that man is up there, one of our North Carolina assemblymen who received it, who has put together a storage room, and he's, finding a way to store these things closer to the areas so that he can distribute. So he's our boots on the ground up there right now. And we just need more of everybody. Yeah, please.
Yeah, on that note, what Ross said that yesterday, he said, I'm distributing, the best I can. He says, I'm going through all this. And he goes, and he laughed and Lavelle heard it. He goes, Dan wasn't playing. He brought up a whole mess of stuff. And he's like, again, so I'm trying to go through it by myself. And then today, he's up on the hill. So again, we just don't have enough volunteers. He's trying to be burning the candle at both ends, so to speak. I yield.
Yeah, and we're calling all living men and women. This isn't about just, you're a declared American. This is not about that. This is you're alive and you're on the mountain. We need everybody who's interested. And so I think that, focusing on some of the small business owners, Anna, we thought that was the only idea that we had, that we felt like they're going to know the people locally. They're going to be able to be the ones to say, hey, we're planning on having this project done. Or we need to know who needs what done, who needs this around the neighborhood, around the community, so we can put lists together.
Okay, so I've got 10 volunteers from the Mennonite Church that are in an unaffected area, and they want to come work. Okay.
Yes.
Who do they get in touch with? Dan?
Yes.
And how do they get in touch with you? Yeah.
So Dan and Lavelle, we have so this link tree that we have going across the bottom here, you guys, all the coordinators are there. All our names are up there. You can click any of our names and say, I'm here to help with this, whatever it is. And then we connect everybody with who they need to be connected with.
Okay.
Yes, Dan. Just open your mic and speak.
I got you. I just spoke to a friend of mine, actually, that's an interior construction specialist, and his house was swept away in Swannanoa. He is up there. I told him that I'd get back to him after the meeting. He said he is obviously busy until July. He's like, I'm swamped. I have all the work I can get. And so then again, maybe if I get up with him, maybe there's teams of volunteers that could just jump in on jobs from time to time and speed things up for people, possibly. I'm working on that angle too, see what I can pull together. I yield.
Yeah, I think labor contribution, like labor volunteers, would be the most appropriate. And we have, Rohit and Anthony trying to organize people just to distribute labor. So anyone who has labor to offer, that's the number one thing that, we could use. And on the back end of that, I think that it's important for us, Dan, for all of us to talk with the assembly and just say, okay, let's get organized based on projects, because that would be the most efficient way for us to connect the people with the project. And then they can just, coordinate, because they need to obviously make it work for everybody's schedules. So I think that's, if they know that they can volunteer on a Tuesday, whatever the date is, they can plan accordingly. Go ahead, Lavelle.
And to add to that, just to make phone calls that, some people may say, well, I don't know what I could do, but just to make phone calls to connect with people for the different projects would be great. And also, we want to thank the Arizona Assembly, because they gave us a very, very, very nice donation. We appreciate them, and they're looking to help us out every single week, whether supplies or tangible items for those, because we know that we're getting calls and we're seeing that there are kids in the cold, at night, no shoes, no coats, and it just really puts into focus what's really important. So we absolutely we've been getting, help from all over the country. So thank you. But we wanted to say thank you to the Arizona Assembly.
Yes.
Is there anyone serving as a point person that people who are interested in donating or working or doing something, getting involved, is there a phone number and a face, a name that they can call?
Yeah, on the link tree we have everybody's taking different positions, like the like Lavelle and Dan are taking all the items, and then Rohit and Anthony are taking are helping to coordinate labor. And when they click their link, then their emails come up. If they want phone numbers, we can add that to the link tree. That's not a problem.
Well, what I would like, and what I'm sure a lot of people would like, is just a phone number.
Oh, sure.
A lot of people don't have Wi-Fi. A lot of people don't have email anymore. And if they've got a phone, if they can get to a phone, then they can call someone and say, hey, we're over here trying to do this.
Okay, we can totally improve by just doing that. We can add a number.
Yeah,
That's
put
easy.
our number in there. I know
We can put all of our numbers on there. We could just put everybody's number on there in addition to that.
Right. Well, in terms of me putting a call out for labor, I'm sure they want to talk to someone on the ground.
Sure.
So can I get a number right here to call?
Dan, you want to put your number?
Yep. I wouldn't know how to put it in. You can write it down at 607 662 5926.
And also, Dan, you can you have a donation drop-off spot as well.
I can take donations by appointment. I don't always have somebody at the warehouse, but I have a warehouse destination. It is 225 Croatan Road. It's Crowatan. It's Castle Hayne, North Carolina, 28429.
How do you spell Castle Hayne?
Castle is 2 words. Castle, Hayne.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get that information out for you, Dan. And, we'll start funneling people your way. Of course, this is basically the first week of true recovery activity where, the thrust of the emergency work has now shifted from primarily rescue to recovery of bodies and identifying people that were killed in the flood. So our guys are accepting a very hard job right now. But they're also stepping up participation in airlifts. So when you find areas and you find people that need airlift support, then by all means, get in touch with Shannon Bookie. We only have contact with the ground crews twice a day, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. And that's when we share all our information of the day. Just because it's crazy out there, and it's a 24/7 rotation, so we just set it up that way. So we get a mini report every 12 hours. And so we do have helicopter airlift, and in many areas we have where the waters have receded and it calmed down, we have boats. We have boats that are plying the rivers now since they've receded from flood stage, and they're going along the river banks and picking up people and pets and anybody that needs transport out of the disaster area. One of the things that's a big concern there for us is that the winter's coming. And in the higher elevations, it's going to be freezing soon. And people not only then have a need for food and water, but they also have a need for fuel, for stoves, for hand tools, for generators, for other kinds of fuel, gas and propane, and for warm clothes, bedding, you know, the things to survive the winter. Because if you don't keep your body temperature elevated, we're going to start having new deaths due to exposure. And in fact, I've already had a couple where people survived the flood, but then subsequently died of exposure because they didn't have shelter and we couldn't get to them fast enough. So, you know, that's a focus for us in the hill country. And let's be brutally honest, there are a lot of other people on the fringes of the hill country and all around who need help. But the majority of the focus has been on navigating that very difficult terrain and getting people out of the hills and reaching people in hill communities who need airdrops of supplies, and getting people who have been injured into hospitals, and all these different concerns, all have focused so far, like at Swan Noah and other places that have been really hard hit, and the hill country because of the isolation and the difficulty of the terrain. So that said, I'm sorry.
Bless you, Anna.
Excuse me. I'm
Bless
having
you.
my morning sneeze attack, I think.
You got one more in you. I always go 3 times.
Yeah.
Ever since I was a little girl, I sneeze. I don't know why. I would be sneezy if I were a dwarf. And my grandmother used to tell me it was because at night pixies creep into your nose. And you have to blow your nose to get rid of the pixies. Anyway.
Because they just keep tickling them. Yep.
Yep. That was her theory. Anyway.
Bless you.
When I say I have sneezing fits, I'm not joking. And the funny thing is, everybody who knows me personally and knows me well knows this. And so when I have my morning sneezing fit, they say, "Oh, it's her. It couldn't be a clone. We know for sure." But anyway,
all right.
I think I'm done.
We know AI can do all of that.
No,
not AI.
No.
Do we have anybody who's actually kind of acting as the gathering point, the coordinator for the disaster area in your area? Or is it just spread out among all the different people?
It's pretty spread out right now. If we had a main location, I mean, that would be obviously great. Me being down on the coast, I'm not sure the exact numbers of us American State Nationals down here, but I know it's Meek. Obviously Wake County and a bunch of the other counties have a lot more help than I would down here.
We actually want to start a membership drive, Anna. So North Carolina Assembly just generally should have been doing this already, and we weren't. So this is something that we want to do, but we're dealing with a disaster amidst all of the everything. There's just a whole everything, of course, it's not like one thing, right? You know how it goes, Anna. It's not going to be like one thing at a time. It's going to be everything avalanching all at the same time. This is how you know the new earth is rising, I guess. Everything is happening all at the same time. And your articles are fantastic. Fantastic right now. Anyone who isn't paying attention to that, my God, you're doing such big work. For anyone who's not following the latest articles, like you really need to be reading and following that's the real news. um,
Well, there are some very significant pieces that are being removed from the chessboard, and there are some very significant pieces being added. So, yeah, the world situation is really pretty precarious, and there are a lot of pieces moving. So, but I don't want to take away from the importance of saving lives and rebuilding lives and keeping people safe, because the ecological disaster is following hard on the heels of the flood. And with floods, we always have a rather extensive and nasty debris cleanup phase that follows the immediate search and rescue and body recovery phases. You start into dealing with the debris.
Right.
And with things like water quality, which has been destroyed throughout the area. So we're looking at long-term remediation. We're looking at long-term efforts to replace water wells and septic systems that were destroyed as a result of the disaster. All that stuff has to be addressed as sort of like a third stage of disaster recovery, and it's very expensive, it's very time consuming, and you're not being assisted by the season.
Right.
In fact, this happened this late in the year at harvest time is causing additional stress and harm, because of course the farmers are trying to get their crops in out the field, any crops that are still unaffected by the disaster. Everybody is struggling to get their crops in, right? And they're being hampered, let's face it, and throughout much of the area impacted. And so you don't have your normal situation in that you've got the harvest going on and you've got winter coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so people who would normally in the summer feel confident leaving and going and doing things they're not free. They've got to get the last of the hay in. They've got to get the last of the pumpkins. They have to, they're up against it themselves. And the weather is a concern for everybody, because you don't know if you're going to face another storm, or if you're going to have snow on the mountain, or it could happen any day that we have a foot of snow up there on top of everything else. So the answer for some people are the ones. I have to take this call. I'm sorry.
Sure. Lavelle.
Well, I was just wondering, as far as the campaign, did Anna kind of sound like that was a good idea, or we can kind of start brainstorming on that?
Yeah, I think so. I'm wanting to know, Dan, when we talk to Ross, also, we should find out, like, do they need help with people who are interested in relocating for the season? Because, like, what is the word on the ground about that too? And I'm looking at the comments, and I know that there were a lot of folks there were, choppers and things going overhead up there with announcements that they were broadcasting. So definitely reaching out to the radio stations and all of these folks, like these are things that we can be working on. And I know that you and Lavelle are working heavily with all the stuff coming in, so we can help support you guys with that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do. I do know that Derek had reached out a little bit too, and what we have found with all the smaller communities is that wherever we reach out, that the fire department, the sheriffs, the mayor, they're not taking any phone calls. That's basically what we've gotten down to. Is anybody we've really tried to get to the top dog to try to see where we could, partner together and make a bigger change. We just haven't been able to reach those people. They've just been too, engulfed by the disaster.
Sure. Right.
And also, Henderson County, we have a representative there, but a lot, like I said, it's only one person, so other people are needed to help, help there to, distribute or to, make calls or this or that. Because if everything just loads in one person, that's where we have to say, hey, what are you doing? We're asking, what are you doing? Are you at least making one phone call, or leading up one project, or giving a call? And a lot of times we are reaching out to men and women, and they're reaching out to us. And sometimes, we try to stay positive, and we can only do what we can do. So, sometimes you may hear people complain, we're not doing this or we're not doing that. However, we've been doing this for what, like 2 weeks. So, we're doing the very best we can. So for the ones that you hear that, they may be in a situation, and they may be, disgruntled. However, we're just putting out there that we're not trying to ignore people. We have reached out, and a lot of time we reach out to the people who are complaining. They may have said that they don't need any more help, but if there are people that need help, just for everyone to know that we're doing our very best to do what we can. But if we can't do anything, we can't do anything, but we're trying.
It's like Anna was saying, that you normally recruit the people that are in the area. And I mean, that's how it was for us when we were hit by Hugo. It was all of us had to fix our areas up. And, it's not like the corporatocracy is going to come in and save the day, when we know that they created this situation, and they timed it perfectly, knowing that they wanted to make these land grabs. So let's just talk about that. That's really what was going on. And now everybody's upset that there isn't some big wave coming in to save everyone. I mean, that wasn't probably going to be happening anyway, right? We know that it's not natural for them to get hit with a hurricane.
No, it's not natural to have a hurricane in North Carolina and Western North Carolina. It's not natural to have a hurricane in Nevada either.
Right.
So, we know these are weather warfare events. We have the before and after. We are aware that China has bragged that China had a hand in this.
Wow.
We know that Bill Gates gave China 60,000 surveillance satellites that were used to ping land-based arrays, broadcast arrays, that were used to guide the storm once it was artificially created, using a technique called hot cloud seeding. Okay, so we know what they did. We know that this was a purposeful attack on our country. We know that there are some motives that could be applied to that. Different industrial-based companies need the minerals that are there in the Blue Ridge. So all of a sudden, after being prevented by the EPA for 100 years from developing your natural resources, Now you have outsiders wanting to come in and steal. And so we see this as quite possibly part of an overall plan to devastate the area and then try to come in and condemn the area's resources. All I can say to you is that it's way past time for America to wake up and for Americans to join together and for us to put an end to the U.S. U.S. occupation of our country, because it's an illegal occupation by Great Britain, and it's an illegal and immoral situation where we have been occupied by our own, what appears to be our own military forces operating in a mercenary capacity. So everybody in the armed forces needs to wake up, from the generals and the admirals all the way down to the foot soldiers, and they all need to be aware that this is the situation that we are facing as a country. We have been occupied since 1863. Now, we have our American armed forces, and, they are loyal to us. We have contractors, military contractors, that are loyal to our country and our people. But we continue to have problems that have been foisted off on us by traitorous members of the U.S. Congress, the Territorial Congress, who have extended the funding of municipal agencies and then used those agencies as mercenary forces against us, against the welfare of the country and the people. So what have I always told you? The only reason to have a government is to protect people and their assets.
Yep.
And if a government isn't doing that, then it's time to get rid of that government and get a new one. And that does not imply any kind of bloody revolution. These people are public employees. Ask yourself, these are public employees. Why can't we fire them?
Mm-hmm. So these questions are coming up, Anna. So per the conversation in military, do they or anyone else at the de facto federal level recognize us as government yet?
Well, other countries recognize us. Certainly, members of the judiciary understand who we are. The high-end judiciary understands who we are and what we're doing.
So the judges here?
The high-end ones, like the state Supreme Court justices, they know who we are. They know what we're doing. They may not agree with what we're doing, but, because they're all Brits. They're all,
Yeah.
But
that's like our governor here on North Carolina, Anna. You've been dealing with Cooper, or you've seen how he is.
More worthless piece of shit I've never met.
Yeah. So, but he knows we're here. We notice him. Okay, Anna, we notice him and he knows it, and they don't like it, but they know they have to honor us. They know that.
Right.
They know they can't harm us.
Right. But in terms of dealing with this disaster, compare his response to that of Governor DeSantis.
Exactly.
Obviously, Governor Cooper and most of his staff was completely incompetent. And I couldn't help but think back to the rather scathing and complete evaluation of the system that we got from our Polish contacts. Basically pointing out that, hey, you've elected fools. You've elected fools to office. What can you expect? They're running your country into the ground because they're idiots. They have no sense of what their job is or what they're supposed to do. And for the most part, they're being guided by commercial interests to do the exact opposite. I mean, if we could just get a nice little banner that said, your job is to protect the people and their assets, and, just paste it on their forehead.
They're like, but we're the corporatocracy. We're not the government. We're the corporatocracy. and they're waiting for us to hold their feet to the fire.
Well, the time is coming, that much I'm sure of. But what I'm looking at is we're the employers, they're the
Mhm.
employees, and so who's continuing to pay them after we want them out? You
So
know,
how do we do? What do we do? What what
it's the
what is
bank.
this?
It's the banks. The banks are at the center of it because the banks continue to extend our credit to these rascals, um, and they've been doing it for a very long time. So no matter what we want, the banks continue to pay them, and they continue to play this game of whatever they want versus what their employers want. And so the key is to hold the bank's feet first to the fire. And when we say, okay, we're not funding them anymore, then the banks cut off their funding because at this point they've got their hands in our pockets and they're just doing whatever they want, and the banks are colluding with them in this. And so the key to this is to turn off the purse strings. When the purse strings are jerked and they can't just continue to access our credit without our permission, and when we can send them home and say, pink slip, you didn't do your job, sorry, we're electing somebody else, or we're getting some other group in here to take care of this. As far as we're concerned, you're just a business and you're here to provide governmental service. And if you don't provide the governmental service, well, then out, we'll find somebody else or we'll do it ourselves. And that, we don't need people, we don't need to be people paying people that aren't doing their job, right? We'd fire these guys if they were on a construction job. If they were doing any other kind of job, they'd be fired and we'd move on. And that's the way it needs to be with this government, that if they're not doing their job, if they're not protecting the people and their assets, then they're gone. Pure and simple. No politicking required. We don't need politics. We don't need politics at all. It's just a job. You take care of the people and their assets, period. That's all you need to worry about. That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, then you're out the door. So, I just reduced all of the he said, she said politics, Democrat, Republican. It doesn't matter. If you don't do the job, then you don't do the job and you're out the door. And that's the way it has to be from going forward. We cannot allow this situation to continue, and we cannot allow it to develop again. Right? So,
Yeah. So everyone's wondering, like, do we need to set up a
yes,
trust?
yes, there will be. Yes, you will have access. Um,
Yeah.
and
Uh,
we're hurrying, frankly, to get this particular relief to people in the disaster area first, because people are going to need their money and they're going to need ways and means of paying for new homes, paying for all the things that have been destroyed. And
well, they
so,
can actually leave and know that they can still come back and rebuild when the weather is good. What they just need money to be able to, let the ground reset, oh, and be and out of harm's way for the moment. Then we can do all the environmental remediation that's required. Then they can come back, they can build. And if they have their financial relief, they can do that.
right, right. Exactly, but we're doing that to a limited extent even now when we find people that have family or friends in other areas that are willing to take them in for the winter. We're helping expedite them out of the disaster area so that they can be safe for the winter.
Mhm. We
Or
want to
else,
help do that too. We want everyone to communicate that with all of us. If that's what you need is an evacuation assistance, then let us know. And the numbers are down here. And I know we just have Dan up here right now. But that's a good starting point and it would work. and we can help Dan to field calls. We'll change all that. But yeah, if they need evacuation, they need rides somewhere, they need help. Dan, you were going to ask about the financial relief. You were going to ask Anna.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, everybody wants to know about financial relief. I know that, I mean, my head goes all over when I go into this topic because I know if we had it, we wouldn't be asking. It would be just here and we'd be doing whatever we need for the people. Furthermore, on some of the donations that excuse me, I'm at a local business. I got my ears lowered beforehand. We didn't have time for makeup, so I hope I'm okay. Um, Anyways, on financial concepts, we are getting money in, and we do have a circumstantial amount that we haven't spent on, about $1,600, I believe, at the moment right now. And do we look at putting that on one chunk, back to the local hardware store, back to a local construction person, maybe put it towards any home or house or family and go that direction? Or do you think it's best to spread it out?
Well, as long as it's relatively small amounts like that, um, I would kind of keep that as just a working fund for now. And if you need something, like someone needs a tank of gas or somebody needs, smaller things, then we have a little bit of cash there. Um, my focus has been to get the prosperity unions up and working so that you can actually access and be able to use your AFD apportionments. So that's where the effort on this side has been, is to get that out there and start signing people up so that they can get theirs. And then everybody has a source of income that they weren't counting on, but which is a substantial cash flow that they can then use to rebuild and for whatever other needs they have. Part of the problem there in North Carolina is, frankly, that people don't have cell phones. They're going to need cell phones to be able to connect. And, people don't have the ability to access a computer because, in many communities, we're talking about some of the poorest communities in America. These guys are just a hair's breadth above reservation standards. And, the actual poorest people in America are American Indians living on reservations. But just within spitting distance, we have the people of the Appalachians. And so we're talking about some of the poorest communities in America and some of the most isolated communities in America. And a lot of them didn't have very ready access to computers and cell phones and that sort of stuff to begin with. And now it's even harder for them. So we've got a significant amount of work to do and a lot of technology to deploy to help them make that giant leap into the access of their accounts and to understand how to access them and what how to use this. The rest of us who already have this stuff and who weren't greatly affected by the disaster, of course, a different story. We can help directly by using our accounts and our access. Mm-hmm. And we can also set up special disaster relief accounts that individual leaders in the community will be able to access.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we had access to our funds, Anna, one of the first things that our coordinator group could do is put together portable satellite systems, and we could go out to Western North Carolina and just find people and start bringing people home and giving them their accounts. I mean, that's easy. If we were to take our initial funding and we just put out vans with Starlink and just go and drive and just start bringing people home and saying, do you need relief? Are this is, and talk to them about what being an ASN is about, and we can be doing that. We can be doing that at their churches. The one thing that we know about Western North Carolina is that those folks are very powerfully tied into their churches. So we could go to the church communities and we could start there to just bring home the masses, and all of us. And we know people, like, obviously our North Carolina Assembly is more heavily populated in some of the Piedmont region. But I can't even imagine any of the folks on our assembly who wouldn't be interested in, we have our relief, we take our vehicle, we take a Starlink, we go to a church and we help them set up, and we just start bringing people home and recording them and helping them get their GFG account set up, and, getting them what they need so that they can confidently know that they're not going to lose their land. They don't have to rush and do something out of desperation and, whatever. They can go find relief somewhere and know that their home they can come back and take care of it. They can do it in the stages and the phases that's required, that nature is requiring of them.
Right. Well, so we're working away on getting our exchange set up, which allows exchange of other currencies for the AFD. And that is ready to launch. So it won't be long. And we know that. But I haven't had my morning update on the bankers. We are working with a number of organizations that are, let's put it this way, they have their own agenda in all of this. And we are encountering the long fingers of the British Empire still pulling its colonialist bullshit, even all these many years later. And so it's been a real, it's been basically the world against Britain, because Britain has been proven to be the long-term no good Nick at the bottom of the dog pile, just as we have discovered repeatedly throughout our investigation and research. So we're dealing with banks that are controlled by British institutions, let's put it that way. And they are pervasive, and they are determined, and they are elitist crooks. I don't know how to say it anymore exactly. Elitist crooks. They are immoral people who are hypocritical in the extreme, who think that because they have white skins and they come from this little island, that they are born to rule over everyone else. And what they've done is they've basically built a criminal empire to do exactly that. But the point is, it's a criminal empire, and they are criminals. So we have to begin with those sorts of facts. And then we have to go out to the rest of the world and say, look at what they're doing. Look at what they've done to you. Look at what they've done to your people, to your economy. Look at how they have basically stolen and colluded with the quote-unquote Holy Roman Empire to do this. And when people start looking and understanding what these criminals have done, then they get motivated. Then they start reading their history. Then they start understanding what is supposed to be versus what is. And it's at that point that we begin picking up steam. Anyway,
yeah.
I have to go. I'm on a real tight schedule today.
Okay.
You have my email. You have my
Yes.
phone number. If you need me, you know where I am.
Thank you, Anna.
Take care, and I'll
Thank
get
you so
your
much, Anna.
information.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day. All
Take
right,
care.
friends. We'll see you guys next Tuesday.
Okay.